Okay, so I know I'm a bit late to talk about Outer Worlds, but it's been a very busy time of year with game releases. And between Death Stranding, Baldur's Gate 2, Icewind Dale, Planescape Torment, and all the JRPGs I've had to play over the last couple of weeks, it has been a tiring couple of weeks for big, long RPGs. And while I've had this one since launch, I have been plugging along at it little bit by little bit. I haven't been able to sit down and really dedicate myself to getting a review done quickly. But I'm remedying that now. I'm actually going to do my voice opinions as well as my review. You can see that up on digitallydownloaded.net soon enough. But yeah, I wanted to talk about this game now, so apologies for the delay, but it is a game worth talking about, and I hope that a lot of people have been discovering it, because it is very good, and it's very much Obsidian in its finest form. Obsidian probably doesn't need any introduction as a RPG developer. For anybody who's interested in the genre, surely you know about Fallout, New Vegas, and Alpha Protocol, and the various other things that Obsidian has done over the years. This one has been chalked up as Fallout New Vegas in outer space. To be honest, I don't necessarily see that. As I was playing along, the vibe I got most strong from this game is actually Mass Effect in the Obsidian style, and that's a really good thing. I love Mass Effect, at least the first 3 games in the trilogy, and I thought that this game did a really good job of capturing that vibe, that same sense of combat, that same sense of open narrative, and even the characterization feels very similar. So on that note alone, I found this game immediately appealing, and I got really stuck into it as much as I could play it for long sessions in between everything else I've been playing. I did sit down for as long as I could and really kind of work through it. But with that being said, I actually hit a bit of a wall with this game and really struggled to get through the later half of it. And I think it has to do with the storytelling. I think the gameplay itself kept me on my toes throughout. I was really enjoying it. It was pitched at a difficulty level that wasn't too advanced for somebody like me who doesn't play that many shooters. As somebody who comes into the genre more for the RPG side of things, the shooting mechanics really kind of worked, and the use of skills and all that really mixed in nicely. There's this really neat time dilation mechanic where you can slow time down to almost a stop, and then you can use that to get some good headshots in or target other particular areas of enemies to blind them and to cripple them and whatever. And making good use of that was nicely tactical throughout the entire game. So I don't have an issue with the way it plays. I think it escalated well there as well. It's more to do with the storytelling that I think this game lost me a little bit towards the end. Not completely, I still found it enjoyable, and I think the characters themselves remain really cool throughout, especially Parvati. I was a big fan of her. She was written really well. All the other characters were written nicely as well, but Parvati in particular was a very, well, for lack of a better comparison, a very Garrus-like character, just somebody that I really enjoyed having in my party, and enjoyed every moment they decided to speak up and say something. So I thought the characterization was really good, but the broad story really did lose me a bit towards the end. And it's a bit odd that the Outer Worlds would lose me in that regard, because it is in pretty much every way the kind of game that I like to play. It is aggressively anti-capitalistic, for example, and takes every opportunity that it can to either criticize or poke fun at the capitalist systems. So for people who haven't played the game yet, the broad story is that you are a ship captain who has lucked into a ship basically because you accidentally crushed the previous captain when an emergency pod that you were in landed on his head. And from there you become a ship captain and go from planet system to planet system solving problems, and largely those problems are the result of capitalist organizations basically ruining the planets and driving the people that work for them into the ground. And as you play along, you come across all kinds of funny propaganda posters. You get a chance to read emails that make it quite clear that in these capitalist dystopias, every person is a resource and is treated as such. You'll come across TV screens where the big joke is that the announcer comes on to say that they're breaking the regularly scheduled advertisements for this news bulletin rather than the other way around, and all of that kind of stuff. And the problem that I have with it is that it comes across as very, very heavy-handed. In theory, you can side with the corporations in this game because it is open storytelling and you do have the decisions to make. But firstly, it's very clear that the capitalist side of things is the evil side. They're the bad guys. You're not meant to sympathize with them, except for the first mission where there is a difficult decision to make, because either way you end up affecting good people, whether those are good people working for the capitalist system or good people who have escaped it. But either way, they are good people, and that's the thing that's kind of drummed into you. But even then, it's all very heavy-handed, and it comes across, especially over the longer period of time, over the 30 or 40 hours or however long this game runs for, it really does start to come across as a game that doesn't have particular respect for the intelligence of the players. Now, that's not really unusual for this industry. When this industry decides that it wants to convey a message, writers tend to really hit you across the head pretty hard with it. I guess under the assumption that the audience wouldn't get the message otherwise. If not, it's just a lack of quality on the part of the writers that they can't really work in allegory and metaphor and all that kind of stuff. It's probably a combination of both, to be fair. This industry is still learning how to tell stories, and in that process gets a little bit heavy-handed when it has a strong message to share with the community. At the same time, because this industry is so driven by sales numbers and being something for everybody, I do get the feeling that writers and directors feel like they can't work on a level that everybody won't get. So as a result, you get very kind of popcorn, blockbustery style storytelling. And I think this game is very much in that line. And that's a real pity, because this topic is a particularly important one, especially in this day and age. You know, we're in the era of late stage capitalism and it's ruining the world basically. And of course environmentalism and all that kind of stuff is a topic that we really need to have conversations about, and they need to be nuanced and mature conversations. And when you have these kinds of meme filled I always say meme filled gotchas and stuff, that conversation isn't really furthered. So I think these developers, they really wanted to share something pretty important and tell a story that is very relevant to the modern era, but they've done so in a way that doesn't actually add to the conversation. All it's going to do is the people who agree with what the developers are already saying are going to say, haha, this is great fun, the game does what it needs to. People who don't agree with the message that this game is sharing, they're just going to dismiss it out of hand, because it doesn't really encourage them to think about the topic in another way. So this game, in being the equivalent of a sledgehammer in terms of the nuance and subtlety that it treats you with, really doesn't tell you anything. It ends up coming across as quite shallow, to be honest. It has a great story, which is a lot of fun to follow through, but it doesn't have that depth. And when I started to play it, I thought that it was going to get there, because it had that strong message and it was really pounding that strong message home. And I was hoping that as I played on, the nuance would start to come through as well, and it would become a more mature conversation about the topic. But it never quite gets there, and that's that's disappointing. I really think that Obsidian is better than that, as they showed with the characterization. They can write well. They have some great characters. They had great voice actors. The whole presentation of this game is just impeccable. But they just didn't do what they needed to with it. They didn't take the ideas and really run with them and really create something potent out of it. And in that regard, I ended up feeling that this game was a little bit more shallow than the Mass Effect series. Even though they played in a way that I felt was comparable, Mass Effect has all kinds of complex ideas running through it. The Reapers in Mass Effect are not the mindless enemy that a lot of people kind of chalk them up to be. There was a lot of nuance and philosophical depth in the way that those Reapers worked and the kind of ideas that they espoused. And The Outer Worlds just doesn't have that. It's such a blockbuster kind of presentation, and I know this isn't the AAA, massive budget games that we've seen from Activision and Ubisoft and whatever. I know that this is a slightly lower scale, more personal project for the Obsidian people, but it behaves in much the same way. And I think they were rewarded for it. I'm pretty sure that this game has sold pretty well, and certainly a lot of people had a lot of fun with it. I had a lot of fun with it. If I finish a game, I've had fun with it, especially at this time of year. But they just could have done more with it, unfortunately, and they didn't. Nonetheless, as you will see from my review on digitallydownloaded.net, I did enjoy this game a great deal. I highly recommend it. I think it's an excellent game. Not quite the Game of the Year material that I thought it would be from the first couple of hours that I played, but certainly one of the highlights, and a game that I probably will come back to again. I know it's coming out on Nintendo Switch in the near future. I'll give it another run because I thought that it's a perfectly fine game to play, and as I discovered, you can play it in hour or two blocks and not feel like you're getting bogged down and not making any progress, or that you need to dedicate more time to it in a single sitting in order to get through it. So it's a good game. It's an enjoyable game, and I hope that people play it, have good fun with it, and I hope Obsidian gets to make another one and perhaps take another look at some of these themes and try and engage with them in a little bit more of a nuanced fashion. Anyway, that's it for me for this video. Thank you very much for watching, as always. If you do enjoy my videos, please consider backing me on Patreon. Blah, 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 blah. I know I ask that every time, but it really helps. I have plans to expand on what I'm doing on these YouTubes and stuff, but to do that I need the money first, frankly. Otherwise, please do subscribe as well. The subscriber numbers are good. That's always a nice thumbs up as well. And we will see you at the next video.